Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today is a story time explaining probably one of my scariest experiences in my life. When I was 5 years old, I fell out of a third-story window and fell 28 feet down. Before I get a bunch of comments asking why I'm in a neck brace, if you've seen any of my videos before, you know that I have something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and so my joints are very loose, and I subluxated a vertebrae in my neck, and it went back in, came back out, went back in, came back out, went back in, and came back out again. So 4 times in the past week it's come back out. I went in to see my spine doctor and he put me in this until it gets better. So there you go, short explanation. Anyways, so now on to my story of falling out of the third-story window. Let's just start from the beginning. I was 5 years old. It was May 9th in 2006. It was early afternoon. My brother was like 1 or 2, and we all 3 of us, me and my mom and my brother, were sitting on the couch eating popcorn. I don't think my brother was eating popcorn, but my mom and I were eating popcorn and watching TV. Well, I went off to play with the cat and she continued to watch TV. I, at the time, liked to play the game Not Follow the Cat. It doesn't even have a name. I would just like to pretend to be my cat. So anything that the cat did, I would do. So like, I would crawl on my hands and knees and like follow the cat and mimic everything that the cat did. What was this? So anyways, I would just follow the cat and mimic whatever the cat did. Oreo, which is my cat's name, walked upstairs and I followed him. He jumped onto my parents' bed, which was right next to their window. So I jumped up on the bed, then he walked over and was like walking along the windowsill, because you know cats do that. So I go walk over onto the, like I stand up on the window ledge and start like walking across, because the cat got up on the window ledge, I followed him, the cat walked across, got to the end, jumped back onto the bed. So I start walking, I get to the end, and as I go to jump onto the bed, which is literally like a foot away from the window, I lose my balance. And obviously, my 5-year-old brain, there was a lot of logic missing here, but the window was open, but there was a screen. So my brain was like, the window's not open, there's a screen. Mistake number 1. So I get to the end, the cat's already on the bed by this time, and I go to jump and I lose my balance and I grab onto the screen because I like try to steady myself. So I grab onto the screen, and the next thing I know, I'm in my backyard. All of a sudden I just remember waking up and I'm staring at the sky. At this point I was in shock. I wasn't in pain when I woke up, I'll say that. I quickly was in pain, but I wasn't when I first woke up. I was confused. I was more just like, how did I get here? Like 1 second ago, I was in my parents' bedroom. Like, how does this happen? So our house is 3 stories tall, and so on the front of the house, our house is on a hill. So like, this is the house, the front of the house is up here, and the back of the house is down here. So from the front, all you can see is 2 stories, but from the back, all 3 stories are like visible. I don't know how you'd say that. So my parents' bedroom is the very top bedroom of the house. So like, I fell from their bedroom all the way to the ground. So all of a sudden, like, it hits me. I was like, oh, I fell out of their window. So I go to get up and like I sit up and I don't remember, this part is what's fuzzy, but I remember getting up to go back in the house, and I had to go all the way around the house back, and I went in the garage door, and that's when the pain really hit me. My back was excruciating. I thought I broke my back. And so I managed to get up into the house. I don't remember, I think I remember crawling up the hill, but I don't remember a whole lot of that. But I remember walking into the house, and I come in the garage door and I walk into the living room, and by this time my mom's like, who just walked in the garage? Like, she saw me go upstairs, and then somebody just opened the garage, and she was like, who's coming in our house? So she turns around and starts walking over to me. I'm covered in mud, like covered in mud. So also another detail, it rained for literally like a week straight before I fell out of the window. So it was like really muddy outside, so I was like covered in mud. And she looks at me and I'm like, these are the words that I say to her. I go, Mom, I'm not dead, but I fell out of your window. Like, no duh, you're not dead. But I was in shock, so that was what my mind was thinking about. I'm like, I'm not dead, but I just fell out your window. And she literally looked at me, she's like, what? Nuh-uh, you're kidding. And like starts to get kind of panicked, and she runs up to her bedroom, and my cat was sitting there staring out the window ledge, like the cat had witnessed me fall apparently, or like the cat was on the bed when I fell out, but the cat was on the window ledge staring out the window. And my mom looks down, the screen is like over in the yard. She just panics, she runs downstairs and she's like, are you hurt? Where are you hurt? And I'm like, my back, I think I broke my back. And so she grabs me, sets me in the chair, which is like so not the right thing to do if you think you have a broken back, but that, like, we were all in shock, and obviously I'm fine, but so she gets on the phone and calls 911. The first people to show up at our house were firefighters. So a fireman comes in and he like lays me down on the ground, then all the ambulances arrive and everything, and by that time I'm being strapped into the stretchers. I'm in a neck brace. I'm in one of those stretchers where like they strap every single piece of you down because they were worried I had a back injury. I did have a back injury, but they're worried I had a back injury. So they put me on the stretcher, carry me out the door, set me on like the gurney or whatever, and then load me into the ambulance. So my brother was, like, as I mentioned before, he was just a little baby, and they said, I'm sorry, like, your mom can come in, like, mom can come in the ambulance, but somebody needs to watch your brother because he can't come. So my mom gives my brother to my neighbor, and she was like, can you call his grandma and have her come get her? And she's like, oh yeah, sure. So my mom's like sitting there talking with the people, they're loading me up, and she calls my grandma. This is like 100% true, guys. At this point, I'm talking, like I walked into the house, but I'm talking. She calls my grandma and is like, Michelle just fell out of the window, but she's still breathing on her own. You need to come get your grandson. Why would that be the words that you tell someone? Like, she's breathing on her own. Okay, that makes it sound like I'm like unconscious. I was conscious, I was answering their questions. Like, I walked or crawled, I don't remember, but I was like upstanding in the house, at least for a little while. And she just said she's still breathing on her own. I literally talked to this person as I was being loaded into the ambulance. So basically, that was the message that my grandma got, which is like, we joke about that still to this day. So anyways, my mom had to call my grandma again and fix the situation. But anyways, so my grandma came and got my brother and met us at the hospital. So I still remember this part to this day. So in the ambulance ride, they gave me a little teddy bear, which I should find him. Anyways, I named him A Miracle. Anyways, so we finally get to the hospital. They unload the ambulance, and as they like take the gurney out of the ambulance, I see these paramedics backing all of these children up against the wall, saying like, back up against the wall, back up. And there was just this class of students lined up against the wall. And here I am, like this kid, even younger than they are, on a stretcher. These kids were like, they looked traumatized. They were freaking out. They were like, oh my gosh, because I come in with a neck brace, like IVs, just completely strapped to a board. Turns out, in our town, first graders and I just don't remember this because it's like a first grade field trip at the school that I go to. First grade field trip, you get to go and like tour the hospital and you get to talk to nurses and all this other stuff. So it was the day that the classes were touring the hospital, and they happened to be touring the ambulance bay when the ambulance came in, and they had to line everyone up against the wall to get everyone out of the way. So I still remember like traumatizing children. But anyways, so I get into the ER. They quickly take me back. I have just tons of people around me. They're like they cut all my clothes off and were sticking everything to me. And basically we're like, I remember them asking me like, what's your pain? They were holding me up a thingy, and I was like 10. And I think they must have given me some sort of medication, because the other parts, from then on, the entire hospital stay, I know I was on a lot of pain medication through the entire thing, but from then on, it's just like spotty memories. So I'll walk you guys through my point of view, and also just like my parents. So from then on, I remember my sister coming to see me, and I was still in the ER at this point because they were running so many tests. My grandma had picked her up from school, and she came to see me, and I just remember at this point I was still in the neck brace, so everything was like looking like this, and I just remember my family being around me and my sister and her talking to me, holding my hands, and just being scared, but more just like confused, because a 5-year-old doesn't really know. Like at that point, I wasn't thinking like there's a possibility you could die. I was thinking like, wow, I just fell out of a window. That's scary. Like I wonder if they're gonna have to give me like, I was just scared to be in the hospital. Granted, like I'd had so many IVs because I've had medical conditions my whole life, so like I'd been in the hospital before, but like that was my point of view. Unlike my family, my sister was scared, my grandparents were scared, my dad finally made it to the hospital. He was out to lunch with someone and it took forever to get a hold of him, but he eventually got to the hospital. And the doctors were telling them like most kids her size who fall that far don't make it, and if they do, they have some serious damage done. So like that's what was going through their minds. And so I remember they did x-rays, I had a CAT scan, they were looking for like internal bleeding, they were looking for a broken back, if my back and neck were okay, like they were looking for all of these things. I had CT scans, like so many tests done, and basically they came back to my parents and said, we can't find a single thing wrong with her. This is a miracle. Like she doesn't have a single broken bone. There's no internal bleeding. And when I say internal bleeding, like none of my organs were bleeding. My muscles were so badly bruised that like my muscles were actually like bleeding, but all of my organs were fine. So basically they said, we're gonna keep her in the hospital for at least a day or two to like, as an observation, because like there's no way that she's like fine. And I don't really remember much except for a few visitors coming to see me because they had me on so many medications. From what I've heard from my parents, like overnight, I was like just crying in pain because I was so sore. But yeah, I remember like friends coming to see me and being in the hospital, and then I remember coming home and they were just shocked. They're like, she's okay. Like all of the doctors were expecting something to be like seriously wrong because a child doesn't fall almost 30 feet and survive and be fine. So we were all just like praising God, like it was a miracle that I survived. And I got a little teddy bear from the ambulance and I named him a Miracle, and I still have him to this day. I'll see if I can find him. So we went home, and for several weeks afterwards I couldn't sit up on my own. I basically lived on the couch. All of my muscles, as I mentioned before, were like bleeding. They were so bruised just from the trauma that my body went through. My parents had to prop me up with pillows, and I would sit there and watch TV, and I would tip over, and I would just sit there, and I don't remember if I would like start to cry or anything, but my parents would come and find me, and they'd have to tip me back up because I couldn't physically sit up on my own. Yeah, but eventually I recovered. I got back to completely normal, and I have one heck of a story to tell. That's for sure. Honestly, the only long-term damage that I sustained from that was short-term memory loss from hitting my head so hard. But that is a very small price to pay for surviving that. I know it might sound like, when I say surviving that, like, you're here, obviously, like the story you just told, like you were barely hurt. Well, okay, one, I was really hurt. I just wasn't like, I didn't have any broken bones or anything, but I was very hurt. But like, I'm not being dramatic when I say it's a miracle that I survived that, because a lot of children die from falling out of windows all the time, and it's honestly a miracle. We all celebrate on May 9th and just thank God that I'm still here. And okay, well, okay, I developed a whole bunch of health problems later on, but that's not related. Now, knowing that medical conditions that I have now that we didn't know about back then, like my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, there's actually been suspicion that my EDS actually helped me in the accident, because all of my joints are so loose, the impact of hitting the ground, it's actually speculated that the reason that my muscles were so badly sore is because rather than hitting the ground and like shattering, my body just bent and like dislocated and then kind of came back together. And that's why all my muscles were like bleeding and so sore, is because they sustained that trauma. When I hit the ground, I bent and I didn't break like I should have. So we actually, and obviously there's no way to prove it, but we kind of speculate and laugh and kind of say like, EDS might have actually helped me. Like all the pain that it causes me now, like it may actually have helped me. Now I'm gonna show you guys some pictures of my backyard at the time. So, as I mentioned, it had rained for days on end beforehand, so the ground was softer than it normally was, and we had a boat. So our boat lived in our backyard, and along the side of our house we stored our lawnmower. We had this like swing thing, like you know those like bench swings, we had one of those. We had some shovels up against the fence. I fell right in the middle of all of that, like a few feet to either side, and I would have fallen onto the boat. I would have fallen onto shovels or the swing. Like, there's so much about this situation that is just like incredible. Like, I got so lucky, and some people might call it lucky. I personally believe that it was a miracle and that God was watching out for me, and like even though I fell, like I don't know. Yeah, that was the time that I fell out of my third-story window. I hope I'm remembering everything. I know this is kind of going to be a longer video, but if you enjoy story times, let me know, and I'll try to do some more of them because I have a few more stories. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!